How's it going, everyone? It is Dragon. We're back with another fairy tale character discussion video. This time we're going over the Sky Maiden of fairy tale, that being Wendy Marvell. And like the other character discussion videos I've done in the past, we're going to section this into parts, and the timestamps for those will be in the description below. And like my other character videos, this is going to be relegated to only fairy tale. There will be no 100-year quest info in this video. Otherwise, we're going to start with Wendy's backstory. Which, starting out before she even shows up at all in the story, you get her prologue. So Wendy was raised by the Sky Dragon Grandina, learning Sky Dragon Slayer magic and healing, which one day you had Grandina disappear with Wendy having to go search for her mother figure, which eventually Wendy runs into Mistigan, which the two end up traveling together for a while, which Mistigan eventually leaves her at the Kate Shelter Guild. So Wendy isn't part of most of the early arcs of fairy tale, and the first arc she fully appears in is the Arashio Sace arc. So Wendy and Carla were the sole members selected to represent the Kate Shelter Guild in the alliance of Fairy Tale, Lamia Scale, and Blue Pegasus, with their goal to defeat the Arashio Sace, which the allied forces were ambushed pretty much immediately by the Sace, and Wendy was kidnapped by Brain. The reason they wanted Wendy was for her healing magic, and their goal was to heal Jalal to learn the location of Nirvana, which Wendy does heal Jalal, but she thinks that he is Mistigan and, wanting to save her friend. Natsu ends up finding Wendy and takes her over to a poisoned Urza, which Wendy promptly heals Urza. So skipping quite a bit into the arc, the next major thing that Wendy does is that she destroys one of the lacrimas of Nirvana. So Wendy with the rest of the allied forces have a celebration that they stop Nirvana and they save the Kate Shelter Guild. That celebration gets cut short really fast because it's revealed that the Kate Shelter Guild wasn't actually real, and that they were spirits the whole time. And now that Nirvana's been destroyed, their spirits were set free, and the guild ended up disappearing, leaving Wendy absolutely devastated because these were her friends and a family to her. She gets comforted by Urza, and Urza invites her to join the Fairy Tale Guild. Going on to the Edelus arc, Wendy does end up joining the Fairy Tale Guild, and when they get back to the guild hall, they have a massive party for Wendy joining the guild. So on a stormy day, walking around Magnolia, Wendy runs into Mistigan, and their reunion is very short-lived, with the guild and Magnolia being sucked into Edelus, which at the time the only survivors were Natsu, Happy, Wendy, and Carla, which they end up exploring Edelus to try and figure out what just happened. So the group ends up meeting an Edelus version of Fairy Tale, and they end up going to the royal capital to go save their friends, which this results in Natsu and Wendy getting captured and getting drained of their Dragon Slayer magic, which they later get saved by Gray and Lucy. Wendy and Carla go to warn the Exceeds of an impending attack on them, which the Exceeds don't believe them at the time, and they just end up getting attacked themselves. Skipping ahead a little bit, Wendy does help Natsu and Gashiel fight the King of Edelus, with the three Dragon Slayers defeating the fake dragon and defeating the king. And with the help of Mistigan, the guild returns home from Edelus. Going on to Tenro Island. So Wendy is asked by Mest to be his partner in the S-Class trial, which even though Carla begs her not to join him, Wendy does accept his invitation. In the first round of the S-Class trial, Wendy and Mest are forced to fight against Gray and Loki, which the two end up losing to Gray and Loki in a pretty silly way because they just make sour faces to Wendy, and she's like, okay, I'm out. So Wendy and Mest end up exploring Tenro Island, which they eventually encounter Azuma, which they end up losing to him, Which, skipping ahead a little bit, Wendy ends up healing Natsu after his fight with Zancro, which, going ahead, Natsu and Wendy group up with a few other guildmates, and that group ends up getting attacked by Blue Note, and they later get saved by Guildarts, which Wendy eventually gets involved in the fight against Hades with the other members of Fairy Tail's strongest team, which, with their teamwork and the eventual help of Loxus, they do eventually defeat the Guildmaster of Grimoire Heart, which that victory is cut very short due to the sudden appearance of Acnologia, forcing the guild to fight him, and later, when they couldn't defeat him, they had to use Fairy Sphere to be able to save themselves. Which takes us into the 7-year gap. After 7 years, the Fairy Sphere spell is lifted, and all the members of Fairy Tail on Tenro Island return to the Fairy Tail Guild, which is when they find out the guild is no longer number 1 in Fiore anymore, so Wendy joined everyone else in training for the Grand Magic Games, which results in Wendy getting a second origin from Ultir and a book from Poorly Yusuka containing spells from Grandina. Which takes us into the Grand Magic Games. So Wendy is chosen to represent Fairy Tail in the games, which she had to be replaced in the preliminary rounds and the early parts of the games because she was attacked before the preliminary round by a member of Raventail. Wendy later replaces Elfman and joins in on the games. Wendy gets selected to participate in one of the fights of the Grand Magic Games, and her opponent is Shelia of Lamia Scale, with the match ending in a draw, but the two become friends. So skipping ahead a little bit, Gajiel ends up leading the group to the dragon graveyard he discovered after the Sting and Rogue match that is underneath the Domus Flow Coliseum, and Wendy ends up using the spell Milky Way to talk with the Jade Dragon Zirconis, which causes Lucy to get arrested. Wendy joins Natsu, Mira, Carla, and Lily to go rescue Lucy. While attempting to escape with Lucy, Wendy is forced to fight Cosmos, and she ends up defeating her. Wendy does witness the Eclipse Gate being opened and dragons coming out, and Wendy has to fight the Jade Dragon Zirconis, and she's later aided by Loxus. The two were unable to defeat the dragon and were only saved due to the Eclipse Gate being destroyed. And with that, we go into the Sun Village. After finishing a job with Urza in a very nice Rave Master reference, Wendy ends up joining in on the job that Natsu and Gray were requested for. Wendy, along with Lucy, end up fighting Hiroshi, Ryla, and Drake, all treasure hunters from Sylph Labyrinth, which during their fight, Wendy's about to get shot, and she ends up getting saved by Flare, who joins the two in fighting. During this fight, Wendy ends up defeating Ryla with a Sky Dragon wing attack. The other girls defeat the remaining treasure hunters of Sylph Labyrinth, and Wendy ends the Sun Village by using Milky Way to be able to communicate with the Eternal Flame, which turns out to be Atlas Flame. Going into my favorite arc, which is Tartaros, Wendy joins Natsu, Lucy, Happy, and Carla in defending a Magic Council member, with the group being attacked by the Tartaros member Jackal, which Natsu eventually defeats Jackal, and they successfully defend the Magic Council member. Going ahead a bit, after being saved by Kana from the guild's destruction, Wendy and Lucy go to find the main control room in the Tartaros Guild, where they end up learning about Face and the timer that has started. Wendy and Carla immediately fly to the location of Face in an attempt to destroy it. When they get there, they find the Tartaros member Azel waiting for them. Wendy initially struggles in her fight against him, which she eventually unlocks Dragon Force during this fight, defeating Azel and Face at the same time. But the Face timer continues to count down, and Wendy along with Carla both think they're about to die, saying their final goodbyes to each other, and the pair is eventually saved last second by Mest, and they learn that the Face that they went to go stop was destroyed. Wendy ends this arc by getting her hair fixed by cancer and being able to meet Grandina one last time. Going into a 1-year time skip, we pick up with Avatar. With the Fairy Tail Guild disbanded, you get Natsu and Lucy trying to find the guild members and rebuild the guild after the 1-year time skip, which they eventually find Wendy and Carla as members of the Lamia Scale Guild, which the Lamia Scale Guild eventually gets attacked by the Roshi's Fin Guild. With the help of Natsu and Lucy, they are able to defend the Lamia Scale Guild. Wendy's able to share a moment with Shelia, and that moment has her decide to rejoin Fairy Tail. The group eventually finds Juvia, and she's sick, so Wendy stays behind to care for her. Wendy eventually joins everyone else in the battle and fully reviving Fairy Tail. Going on to the final arc of Fairy Tail, that being the Alvarez Empire or the Spriggan 12. Wendy starts this final arc by helping in the mission to go save Makarov, which the group does do. Wendy and Urza are able to share a really nice moment before the full battle with Alvarez. Wendy starts the battle against Alvarez in the Flying Dragon Squad, which consists of Gajil, Lily, Natsu, Happy, Wendy, and Carla. They end up fighting members of Agil's squad and defending Magnolia. Wendy is later tasked with helping Lamia Scale and Mermaid Heel recapture Hargion in the south. Wendy gets to team up with Shelia to fight Demaria, and they're only able to fight her with the aid of Ultir, and the Sky Sisters were still unable to defeat Demaria when she used her God Soul Kronos form. So Shelia, with the help of Ultir's third origin, was finally able to defeat Demaria. Following this battle, you get Nineheart using Historia of the Dead, which this revives Azel, forcing Wendy to have to fight him once again, and she ends up defeating him once again. After the events of Universe 1, Wendy joins everyone in the attempt to go save the guild. While in the battle to go save the guild, Wendy and Urza run into Irene, with the two having a tag team battle against Irene, which Irene eventually does use an enchantment on Wendy to swap bodies with her, using Wendy's very own body to fight Urza, which Irene pretty much thought that she killed Wendy by leaving her in her dead quote-unquote body. To Irene's surprise, Wendy was able to use Irene's body to use that enchantment once again and swap their bodies once again. This causes Wendy within her own body to lose consciousness, which later she does regain consciousness, and she ends up enchanting Urza's sword with Dragon Slayer magic, with the hopes that it would deal a critical blow to Irene. But before they can even deliver that finishing blow to Irene, Irene ends up killing herself, which Urza and Wendy later encounter Acnologia, which has them pairing with Blue Pegasus and Anheartphilia to try and lead Acnologia into the space between time, which doesn't go so well, which leads to Wendy and the other Dragon Slayers forced to fight Acnologia in the space between time, which in their combined efforts they were able to defeat Acnologia. Wendy ends the story by joining Natsu and the others on the 100-year quest. That is the end of the backstory section. Going on to the next section, that being Wendy's personality. So Wendy is a very kind, compassionate person, and she can be awkward / shy at times. When she was younger, Wendy was mostly kind of a crybaby until she met Mistigan and the Kate Shelter Guild, and also Carla, helping her to grow out of her crybaby phase. An early quirk she had when she appeared in the story was clumsiness, tripping over things pretty darn easily, which is a trait she mostly lost, but it did reappear every now and again. Wendy early on didn't have much confidence because she would doubt herself pretty much all the time. She would doubt if she could even use offensive spells at all, and she would gain confidence from Natsu with her being inspired by him, which not having confidence in her combat ability wasn't the only thing she didn't have confidence in, because Wendy also doesn't have much confidence in her appearance, constantly judging herself on her height and the size of her boobs. Wendy really has gained more confidence and bravery as the story has gone on. Another weird quirk that Wendy has is she can't stand the sight of people eating sour things, particularly sour pickled plums, which is why she lost her battle against Gray and Loki, which, speaking of combat is not something that Wendy really enjoys doing, and the only time she really does it is if she's forced or is wanting to protect the guild in some way. To most of the guild, Wendy's like a little sister to them, with Wendy having the strongest bonds with Urza, Natsu, and Carla, and having a sister/best friends relationship with Shelia. Going on to the abilities that Wendy has. The magic that Wendy uses is Sky Dragon Slayer magic. And with that you get some base abilities, so that's what I'm going to cover now. Just by being a Dragon Slayer, Wendy gets enhanced senses. For example, like enhanced sight, smell, hearing. The Sky Dragon Slayer magic that Wendy uses in particular is able to heal people, which her magic does have the healing properties, but it also has enchantments, which I'm going to cover that later. Like the other Dragon Slayers, Wendy also developed the downside of Dragon Slayer magic, that being she gets motion sick on any moving vehicle. So Wendy can heal, she can do enchantments, and then also kind of a third healing thing that she was able to do was with like Natsu. She could cast a spell on him called Troya, and that would cure his motion sickness. Going into her actual named abilities. So the first named ability, that being Sky Dragon's Roar, which this is Wendy's breath attack, where she takes a deep breath and then releases a giant stream of air at her target. The next ability being Sky Dragon's Wing Attack, where Wendy will make streams of air surrounding her arms and, swipe that at her target and cause maximum damage. Sky Dragon's Talon, where Wendy will jump above her target and hit them with her foot, which smashes them with a large amount of wind. Sky Dragon's Crushing Fang, where Wendy will coat her fist in wind and then swipe at her target, and this additionally left like scratches behind from where the wind hit on like Shelia's arm. Leading Sky Arrow, to where Wendy coated one of her legs in Sky Dragon Slayer magic, then just kicked her target with it. Momentum Wind, to where Wendy gathered a bunch of wind at her feet, which allowed her to have a massive boost in speed. The next abilities being some Dragon Slayer secret arts. The first being Scattering Light Sky Drill, to where Wendy makes a barrier of wind around her and her target, and she condenses it almost into a beam very similar to the Sky Dragon's Roar, just straight into her target. Basically forces her target in with her in a smaller enclosed area and basically has a higher chance of them actually getting hit with the attack. And then Milky Way, which isn't so much a spell to attack anyone. She used this spell to be able to summon dragon souls, to be able to have a conversation with them. The best examples being during the Grand Magic Games, and she also used this to talk with Atlas Flame and the Sun Village. Finally, Wendy is able to enter Dragon Force at will, which while in Dragon Force, she's been shown to be a very, very fast fighter, along with gaining additional strength and additional power with her Sky Dragon Slayer magic. Wendy's Dragon Force does have a named ability, that being Sky Dragon's Wind Wave. So when Wendy was doing this attack, she was kind of spinning around, releasing wind from her hands, which eventually created a large tornado that trapped a bunch of enemies into it. Getting into the enchantments that Wendy can do, most of these have a whole phrase that she says before she says the activation name. Just to save your time, and also so I don't have to spell it all out on the screen, I'm just going to say that one activation name as the spell, and then just say what it does. So the first enchantment that Wendy can do, Vernier, to where Wendy can speed up the movement speed of others around her and herself. The next enchantment being arms, to where she can buff the damage output of whoever she casts this on. Armor, to where Wendy increases the defensive power of the people that she casts this on. Raise, to where Wendy can negate the effects of magic on herself and her teammates. So if you had like a binding spell on them, if she used this spell, it would just nullify that. Which, going from raise, we go to re-raise, to where it will protect her from any magic ailments that could be inflicted towards her. Deus Chrono, to where Wendy will increase her defensive capabilities pretty significantly. Deus Equus, to where Wendy is able to increase the physical abilities for herself and the ones around her. So I'm just going to call this Dragon Slayer enchantment. So Wendy's able to put Dragon Slayer magic onto a person or an item. An example being Urza's sword, so Urza can attack with Dragon Slayer magic. Deus Zero, to where Wendy is able to negate the effects of other people's enchantments. And finally, we have the Separation Enchantment, which was the spell that was used to separate Irene from Wendy's body. It's an enchantment that's used to, separate people's bodies from one another. In the case of Irene and Wendy, to where they were swapping bodies left and right. And that's pretty much it for everything about Wendy within main Fairy Tail. What are your guys' thoughts on Wendy? Leave it in the comments below. Otherwise, thank you for watching this Wendy video. It took an absolute insane amount of time to make, so I'm not going to usually ask for likes and stuff, but leave a like if you want and share it if you're able to. Otherwise, thank you for watching, and this is Dragon signing out.